live in interesting times for the headlines. The threat of the Philippines' Taal volcano unleashing a potentially catastrophic eruption remains high, according to authorities, saying it was showing dangerous signs despite a lull in spewing ash. In the midst of Australia's devastating bushfire season, hundreds of goodie bags were given to the homeless and donations for bushfire victims. Two articles of impeachment against Donald Trump were delivered from the U.S. House to the Senate on Wednesday, setting in motion the trial of the 45th U.S. president. Efforts for those affected by the recent calamity brought about by the Taal volcano eruption reached the civilians and residents in Batangas. They were given as much as they can carry. Mga Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world, thank you very much for joining us. And now to the news. The threat of the Taal volcano unleashing a potentially catastrophic eruption remains high, according to authorities, saying it was showing dangerous signs despite a lull in spewing of ash. Scores of earthquakes rattled the region daily, and large fissures are opening up in the ground, which means the magma that would fuel a major eruption is still flowing beneath. Authorities are struggling to keep evacuees, some 50,000 of whom fled to shelters after Taal burst to life on Sunday, away from the danger zone around the volcano. People are trying to get back to homes they left in a hurry to get a change of clothes, feed livestock and pets, and check on properties damaged by the fissures or covered with a thick layer of ash.
Hindi ang hiling namin kung kami matutulungan na maitayo man lamang ang aming ito, ang aming pamamahay. Baka naman ho sakaling pagka tumigil ang kuwan ng bulkan, makauwi pa rin kami dito. Gawa ho, wala naman ho kami pupuntahan.
Pagpunta ko din sa ngayon, bagsak na ang bahay ko, ang kusina at saka tiris na rin.
Ang naramdaman siya?
Ay, naramdaman ko. Ay, ako mangayak-ngayak nga. Sabi ko ba, wala na tayong babalikan bahay din eh. Saan tayo titira ngayon? Ay, puro, dilubyo na nangyari sa ating barangay.
Maria Antonia Bornes, a scientist from the Philippine Seismology Agency, told reporters a long lull could be just a break from volcanic activity. The danger remains, she said. The short-lived eruption brought out dark gray ash plumes 500 meters to 800 meters high. PHIVOLCS director Renato Solidum earlier explained that the weaker eruption is being based on the height of the plume coming out of the crater. Meanwhile, Ms. Bornes confirmed that Taal's main crater lake has already dried up, and she explained that the magma coming out since January 12 has vaporized the water.
Mga 6:17 at 6:21 ng umaga ay nagkaroon po tayo ng mga short-lived na maliliit na explosions or expulsions, pagsaboy ng maitim na usok na maraming aso dito po sa bungangan ng bulkan na tumulat po ng umabot ng 800 meters ang tayo. At generally po, ngayon medyo low level or weak ang activity sa main crater. Nakapagtala ng 566 na volcanic earthquakes mula pa nung nag-umpisa ang pagputok ng bulkan hanggang sa kaninang umaga. At ang 172 lindol ay naramdaman sa LST 1 to 5 at may lakas ng magnitude 1.2 to 4.1. Ito pong mga seismic activities na ito, yung mga paglindol, yung naulat po na pagpitak ng lupa kahapon, isang araw pa, at ang pag-atras ng tubig ng lawa, Pacific River, ay ini-interpret po natin ng malawakang uplift ng Bulkang Taal. At ito po ay nagbuhudyat na mayroon pang tumutulak na magma sa ilalim ng bulkan. Meron pa rin po tayo nababad dyan, panganib, maaaring maging malakas na pagputok ng bulkan. Kaya po, sa kasalukuyan ay nakatalaga pa ang alert level 4.
Authorities have warned since Sunday that the volcano, which sits south of Manila and is one of the country's most active, could let loose a powerful eruption in hours or days. Taal's last eruption was in 1977, but it has a long history of activity. In 1965, an eruption at the volcano, which is a popular tourist attraction set in a picturesque lake, killed some 200 people. The country's most powerful explosion in recent years was the 1991 eruption of Mount Pinatubo, about 100 kilometers northwest of Manila, which killed more than 800 people. The Philippine National Police has set up checkpoints in areas within the 14-kilometer danger zone of the Taal volcano, according to the Department of Interior and Local Government on Thursday. Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya, DILG spokesperson, said local government units may allow access to some high-risk areas on a case-to-case basis, but stressed that this must be coordinated with disaster officials. He, however, reiterated that the Taal Volcano Island, located in the middle of Taal Lake, is strictly off limits. Now, this came after some residents attempted to enter the island to retrieve belongings and animals such as horses, cows, and pigs. On Monday, the DILG issued an order for mandatory evacuation in 199 barangays and 15 municipalities and cities in Batangas and Cavite, which have been identified as susceptible to ballistic projectiles, base surges, and volcanic tsunami as a result of the eruption of the Taal volcano. Among the LGUs with barangays within the 14-kilometer danger zone are Agoncillo, Alitagtag, Balete, Cuenca, Laurel, Lemery, Lipa City, Malvar, Mataas na Kahoy, San Nicolas, Santa Teresita, Taal, Talisay, and Tanawan City, all in Batangas, and Tagaytay City in Cavite.
Technically, it's mandatory evacuation. Kaya lang umaabot tayo sa punto ng forced evacuation, kasi kailangan na talaga maialis kung may sino pa yung mga taong nananatili doon sa loob ng 14-kilometer danger zone. We're still at alert level 4, so ibig sabihin, imminent violent hazardous eruption that can happen anytime within hours or days. Kapag naabutan ng pagputok ng bulkan na may tao pa dun sa 14-kilometer danger zone, they're as good as dead. Kaya hindi natin kasi magagaranti na marirescue natin sila kasi sa bilis ng pagragasa ng base surge na yan, hindi natin sila maaabutan. Ang ating supplies po ng relief ay sapat pa rin. At ito po ay sinusuporta, itong supply na to ay suportado pa rin ng supply ng probinsya at saka ng Regional Disaster Council, pati ang National Disaster Council. So, i-replenish po natin yan, hindi po natin mapapaabutin sa yugto ng kakulangan.
The Provincial Board of Cavite has placed the province, which is reeling from the effects of Taal's volcanic activity, under a state of calamity. The declaration was announced in a Facebook post of Cavite Vice Governor Jolo Revilla. The declaration will allow the local government of Cavite to tap into calamity funds. Cavite is the second province to declare a state of calamity following Batangas, where Taal volcano is located. Cavite Vice Governor Jolo Revilla advised residents to keep themselves updated on official news and announcements. Meanwhile, efforts for those affected by the recent calamity brought about by the Taal volcano eruption reached the civilians and residents in Batangas City. An aid to humanity was conducted in the compound of the local congregation of Batangas City, where the victims were given as much as they could carry for their necessities. Take a look. other news now, rain fell across parts of bushfire-ravaged eastern Australia on Thursday and more wet weather was forecast, giving some relief following months of catastrophic blazes fueled by climate change. The fires, unprecedented for Australia in terms of duration and intensity, have claimed 28 lives and killed an estimated billions of animals. Sustained hot weather and only very rare periods of light rain in the affected areas have deepened the crisis. So authorities have been looking forward to this week's rain, hoping it would help contain or even extinguish some fires. In the state of New South Wales, where many of the worst fires have burnt, there were good falls on some blazes early Thursday, the local meteorology reported. Now, before the rains, there were 30 blazes burning out of control in New South Wales. Smoke from bushfires had also choked the southern city of Melbourne from Monday to Wednesday, disrupting the build-up to next week's Australian Open tennis tournament. Meanwhile, animal welfare groups say time is of the essence for wildlife injured in the Australia's devastating bushfires, as rescue teams on Kangaroo Island race against the clock to save the animals. On an island famed as Australia's Galapagos for its unique and abundant wildlife, rescuers are racing to save rare animals in a bushfire-ravaged landscape. The charred forest floor on Kangaroo Island is littered with corpses of animals incinerated by the blazes that swept through 2 weeks ago. Unprecedented fires across swaths of southern and eastern Australia over the past 5 months have killed an estimated billion animals, with forests and coastal areas roughly the size of Portugal burned through. Environmentalists fear the fires will drive some species to extinction.
Yeah, so one of the areas that we keep going back to is just outside Flinders Chase National Park, which I think most of the world knows was horribly hit by the fires about 2 weeks ago now. And we originally, when we found this area, we never thought anything could have survived, but we have, I think, pulled survivors out of there every day. I think time is of the essence. Every day that goes by, the animals get weaker and weaker, and their organs are becoming more susceptible to irreparable damage. So we need to just continue to get out there as much as possible and get the animals that we know we can help, because there's definitely, we can tell there's some that we haven't reached in time.
It's a term that gets thrown around a lot, but roller coaster of emotions. I mean, we're out there spending hours walking through just catastrophic landscapes, hundreds and hundreds of bodies on the ground, koalas, kangaroos, everything.
Now, in the midst of Australia's devastating bushfire season, hundreds of goodie bags were given to the homeless, and donations for the bushfire victims were turned over to the Blacktown City Council. The fires have caused more than 25 deaths, extensive damage to homes and businesses, and the large-scale destruction of native wildlife populations. Our EBC correspondent from Australia, Alma Morales, reports from Sydney.
In an effort to contribute to the homeless and the affected residents of the bushfire crisis, the members of Iglesia Ni Cristo or Church of Christ have organized a humanity program simultaneously conducted in the eastern part of Australia. As the Australian bushfires continue to affect the country, many donations and contributions have been made for this calamity. The recent bushfires were said to be one of the worst bushfires in Australia's history. New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian declared the state of New South Wales in a state of emergency due to the severity of the bushfires. The states of Victoria and New South Wales have all been affected by the smoke of the bushfires, affecting the air quality throughout the states. Additionally, the animal death toll has been said to be over 800 million, causing some species at risk for extinction. Today was an opportunity for the members of the Iglesia Ni Cristo or Church of Christ to offer their help to those affected by the catastrophic bushfires within Australia. Goods were donated to the Blacktown City Council, who will oversee the distribution to the residents of the bushfire-affected areas. The Aid to Humanity program has been held several times across the globe. This initiative within the Church of Christ aims to help people who have been affected by calamities or who need extensive support within their communities. One of the notable Aid to Humanity events that was held last year was the Worldwide Walk to Fight Poverty, aimed to assist communities within the continent of Africa that are struggling with poverty.
What we are doing now is the aid to humanity, which is in relation to the campaign of the church administration to help our fellow men or our countrymen, especially those who are in need. Not only to give the help that they need, to show our love and our concern to them, but more importantly, to share with them the words of God that the members of the Church of Christ firmly believe in.
We're an organisation in the Hawkesbury that help the poverty, those experiencing homelessness and those who are disadvantaged. Well, first of all, everything we do with dignity and kindness. And I think it's very important that people know that somebody cares, truly cares. Today, it was wonderful. It was such a beautiful spirit here. One of our favourite expressions is community spirit, and I can really sense it here today. And the hampers we're getting are just going to be amazing. Actually, some of them are going out tonight. I'm going straight from here to, we call it meal service, and we'll have up to 100 people of all ages, from babies to the elderly, and some of these will go out to them tonight.
Not today, just a broader horizon. The amount of people are out there, the people that are here, the preaching that is here, the community involvement is here, it's well, it's empowering. I think it's going to broaden us all, go further, great community, good concept. I think we're all involved. As Australians, we feel pretty good when we volunteer. Yeah, we do.
But the most important thing today is to look after those who have been caught up into this catastrophe. There's over 2,000 homes being destroyed. There's 24 to 30 people lost their lives. So also, of course, there's so much dislocation in the countryside. We as Australians are jumping in to give their support, and certainly Blacktown City Council, I brought together all of our top town planners and managers, and we are putting together a plan where we as Blacktown City Council can give a level of support. So we are seeking to ensure that we play a significant role in supporting councils who need that support. They're already, of course, collecting huge amounts of food, contributions from our communities in Blacktown City, and of course that's now being on semi-trailers, moving north, south, east and west to give the support for those who have been caught up in this mess. What we need also, of course, is a lot of financial support. People need money to buy the basics. So these are some of the issues that going forward need to be resolved by state and federal governments. We need to have a national plan going forward. How do we deal with this kind of catastrophic emergency in Australia?
The Aid to Humanity event has been conducted in other locations such as Canberra, Brisbane, Gladstone, Mackay, and Townsville, being extended to non-members of the church that further strengthens community spirit. Reporting from Sydney, Australia, this is Alma Morales, and I'm one with Friends.
At least 39 people have been killed and over 60 wounded as severe weather coupled with heavy snowfall, rains and floods have struck Afghanistan. Take a look.
نمی این سال که ما میبینیم و 30 سال پیش باید ما آورد دیگه که در کابل نمی تو سردیا بود نمی رقم برد به درک برد می شدن حتی که موتره شهروالی همی بلدوزر نمی فرما سرکار پاک نمی کرد 30 سال پیش و نمی تو راپندی هم می تو سرکار پاند بگی مگر این سال ما متفکر میکنیم که با اون مساله साल पेश मा fikir mekanik ke bai serti pamuan ta sasa.
Disaster response teams were on standby in Fiji Thursday as the Pacific Island nation faced a second cyclone threat in less than 3 weeks. Gale and heavy rain warnings were in place on northern Rotuma Island, and the Fiji Meteorological Service said the storm was expected to be fully fledged Tropical Cyclone Tino by the evening. It's forecast to pass over the second largest island, Vanua Levo, on Friday. There were concerns for an inter-island ferry with more than 100 passengers and crew on board, which was drifting in the path of the storm after developing mechanical problems. But the Rescue Coordination Center said repairs had been made and the vessel had safely reached harbor in the capital, Suva. Just after December 25, Fiji was hit by a tropical cyclone Sarai, which left 2 people dead and more than 2,500 needing emergency shelter as it damaged houses, crops, and trees and cut electricity supplies. Now, this year, 2019, was the second warmest year on record after 2016, according to the World Meteorological Organization's consolidated analysis of leading international data sets. Since the 1980s, each decade has been warmer than the previous one. And this trend is expected to continue because of record levels of heat-trapping greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Take a look. Eagle News will be right back. Welcome back. Two articles of impeachment against President Trump were delivered from the U.S. House to the Senate on Wednesday, setting in motion the trial of the 45th U.S. President. Take a look. Pelosi signed the articles. There are 2 formal charges from the House: abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. Democrats say President Trump abused his power by pressuring Ukraine to investigate the son of political rival Joe Biden, a former U.S. vice president, who's running for the presidency this year. And Democrats said President Trump obstructed Congress by not fully cooperating with the House impeachment investigation. Republicans, meanwhile, say that investigation was unfair and biased against President Trump. President Trump called it a sham, a hoax, and a witch hunt.
So sad, so tragic for our country that the actions taken by the President to undermine our national security, to violate his oath of office, and to jeopardize the security of our elections, the integrity of our elections, has taken us to this place. So to make it be very clear that this President will be held accountable, that no one is above the law, and that no future president should ever entertain the idea that Article 2 says that he can do whatever he wants.
President Trump was formally impeached on December 18, but House Speaker Nancy Pelosi held back on delivering the articles to the Senate as she pressured Republican Senate Leader Mitch McConnell to agree to subpoena the witnesses and documents that the White House blocked from the House probe. Senator McConnell has refused to commit, saying the issue will only be decided after the trial's opening arguments and questioning, which could take 2 weeks.
We'll pledge to rise above the petty factionalism and do justice for our institutions, for our states, and for the nation. And then we will formally notify the White House of our pending trial and summon the President to answer the articles and send his counsel. So the trial will commence in earnest on Tuesday.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced that the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff will lead the prosecution of President Trump at his impeachment trial in the Senate. Schiff led the House investigation that resulted in President Trump's December 18 impeachment for abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. 6 other House lawmakers were named as managers: Jerry Nadler of New York, Zoe Lofgren of California, Hakeem Jeffries of New York, Jason Crow of Colorado, Val Demings of Florida, and Sylvia Garcia of Texas.
And by selecting these particular batch of managers, the Speaker has further proven she's not interested in winning the minds, the hearts, or even following the Constitution. Let's take a look at the first 3 names Speaker Pelosi announced in her anticipated announcement earlier today. Chairman Schiff, a man who has already taken on the role of judge, jury, and fact witness throughout the entire House impeachment process.
Doesn't matter because this is a political impeachment. This has nothing to do with the facts. We've shown that there was nothing done wrong, but that does not matter. When the train is on the tracks, the whistle is blowing, impeachment matters, and the only thing that matters on a timeline, the only real emergency here is that there's a 2020 election in which the Democrats can't stand to see the fact this president is going to win again. They can't.
An associate of Rudy Giuliani claims President Trump knew exactly what was going on regarding efforts to pressure Ukraine into investigating former Vice President Joe Biden and his son. Lev Parnas, an associate of Trump's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, told MSNBC on Wednesday that President Trump knew exactly what was going on. On Tuesday, Democrats released newly acquired files that show Giuliani working with Parnas early last year to pressure Kiev to investigate Joe Biden. They also showed the two working with Ukrainian officials trying to force out the U.S. ambassador to the country, Marie Yovanovitch, who was eventually removed by President Trump. Parnas, a Soviet-born American, was arrested on charges of campaign finance violations in October as he attempted to flee the country and was ordered to turn over key documents to House investigators. The president has denied all wrongdoing and sought to distance himself from Parnas when he was arrested in October along with his business partner. President Trump was impeached in the House of Representatives last month and is accused of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. The case was sent to the Senate on Wednesday, where a trial is set to be held. Russia's ruling party backed President Vladimir Putin's nomination of a little-known tax chief as the new prime minister on Thursday. After President Putin's announcement of a constitutional shakeup fueled speculation about his plans. The lower house of Russia's parliament approved Mikhail Mishustin for the role a day after the shock resignation of the government after President Putin's call for reforms to reshape Russia's political system. The series of bombshell announcements made during and after President Putin's State of the Nation speech triggered speculation about his role past 2024 when his current presidential term expires. Some suggested 67-year-old President Putin, who is 2 years into his fourth presidential term and has steered the country since 1999, could be laying the groundwork to assume a new position or remain in a powerful behind-the-scenes role. It's unclear whether Mishustin, a technocrat whose recent career revolved around the tax service, is a temporary placeholder or could be groomed as Putin's successor. In other news, Iran's president said dialogue with the world was possible despite high tensions with the United States and stressed that Tehran was working daily to prevent military confrontation or war. Iran attacked the U.S. military in Iraq on January 8 with missiles to retaliate against Washington's targeted killing of a key Iranian general 5 days earlier in Baghdad, at a time when both are also locked in a bitter dispute over Iran's nuclear program. The government is working daily to prevent military confrontation or war, President Hassan Rouhani said in a televised speech, adding that for me this is a daily concern. On Wednesday, Rouhani had said Iran's missile launches against Iraqi bases used by the U.S. armed forces and provided compensation for the death of General Qasem Soleimani, the architect of Iran's Middle East military strategy. In his speech on Thursday, President Rouhani also said that the Iranian retaliation, which caused significant material damage but no casualties according to the U.S. military, had strengthened Iranian deterrence against the threats of President Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Iran accused European governments of sacrificing a troubled 2015 nuclear deal to avoid trade reprisals from President Trump, who has led opposition to the agreement. Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif said the decision by Britain, France, and Germany to heed U.S. pressure to lodge a complaint on Tuesday, alleging violation of the deal by Iran, deprived them of any right to claim the moral high ground. The three governments sold out remnants of JCPOA, the nuclear deal, to avoid new Trump tariffs, Zarif charged. He was alluding to a report by the Washington Post on Wednesday that cited European sources as saying that the Trump administration had renewed the threat to impose a 25% tariff on European car exports if the three governments held back. Speaking in India on Wednesday, Zarif also questioned how the European Union could allow itself to be bullied by Washington when it was the world's largest economy. Iran is now enriching more uranium than it was before agreeing to a nuclear accord with world powers in 2015. Iran's president declared as he rejected a proposed new Trump deal that could save it from sanctions. Hassan Rouhani, in a televised speech, said pressure has increased on Iran, but we continue to progress after Britain, France, and Germany triggered a dispute resolution in response to Iran's violations of the terms of the agreement. Iran has gradually scaled back its commitments under the nuclear deal in retaliation to U.S. withdrawal from the pact in 2018 and its reimposition of sanctions that have crippled the country's economy. To other news now, a case of the mystery respiratory infection related to the potentially deadly SARS virus, which first emerged in China, has been confirmed in Japan. It appears to be only the second time the novel coronavirus has been detected outside China, after the World Health Organization confirmed a case in Thailand. Japan's health ministry said a man who had visited Wuhan, the apparent epicenter of the outbreak, was hospitalized on January 10, 4 days after his return to Japan. He reported having a persistent fever. Tests on the patient, who was released from hospital on Wednesday, confirmed he was suffering from the new virus. And this is the first domestic discovery of a pneumonia case related to the new coronavirus, the ministry said in a statement. The outbreak has caused alarm because the new virus is from the same family as SARS, or severe acute respiratory syndrome, which killed 349 people in mainland China and 299 in Hong Kong in 2002 and 2003. Authorities in Wuhan said a seafood market was the center of the outbreak. It was closed on January 1. The man hospitalized in Japan said he had not visited the market, however, leaving it unclear how he contracted the virus. The health ministry urged people who develop a cough or fever after visiting Wuhan to wear a surgical mask and swiftly visit a medical institution. On Wednesday, Chinese authorities said the virus may have been spread between family members, opening the possibility of human-to-human transmission. The woman diagnosed in Thailand, who is in a stable condition, also said she had not visited the Wuhan seafood market.
Investigations have found that some of the cases were workers, handlers, or frequent visitors at a seafood market in Wuhan where live animals were sold.
We are still in the very early days of this, and so there are investigations that are evaluating how individuals were infected. As Tarek mentioned, many individuals mentioned this one market in Wuhan, but it is possible, because it's a respiratory pathogen, we wouldn't be surprised if there was some limited human-to-human transmission, especially among families who have close contact with one another.
To the Philippines now, the Department of Health confirmed 4 more polio cases in the country, bringing the total number of polio cases to 16 since the outbreak was declared in September of 2019. The Research Institute of Tropical Medicine, or RITM, reported 2 additional polio cases from Maguindanao, both males, ages 2 and 3 years old, 1 polio case from Sultan Kudarat, a 2-year-old male, and 1 polio case from Quezon City, a 3-year-old male. They manifested with fever, diarrhea, muscle pain, asymmetric, ascending paralysis, and weakness of extremities. DOH extended its Sabayang Patak Contra Polio, or SPKP, campaign to ensure that no child is left unvaccinated and to boost protection for those already vaccinated. The succeeding rounds are scheduled on January 20 to February 2 in all regions of Mindanao and on January 27 to February 7 in the National Capital Region. Health Secretary Francisco Duque said, "I urge all parents and caregivers of children under 5 years old to take part in the coming SPKP campaign rounds scheduled in their respective areas." DOH and the local government units aim to accomplish 95% coverage in all identified areas for every SPKP round. The Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C. has repatriated 30 Filipinos in Haiti as social unrest continues to grip the Caribbean state since 2018. The 30 Filipinos, composed of 9 minors and 21 adults, are scheduled to arrive in Manila on Thursday, January 16. The Filipino community in Haiti petitioned the said repatriation due to the unstable economic and security situations in the country caused by continuous civil unrest, crime, and kidnapping. Most of the minor repatriates will continue their studies in the Philippines. The repatriates were divided into 2 groups: the Philippine Airlines Group, which is composed of 17 repatriates, and the Asiana Airlines Group, which is composed of 13 repatriates. A team from the embassy, led by Deputy Chief of Mission Renato Pedro Villa and Assistance to Nationals Officer Ryan Dasal, facilitated the repatriation from January 11 to the 14th. In a separate statement, Philippine Ambassador to the U.S., Jose Manuel Romualdez, said ensuring the safety and well-being of overseas Filipinos remains a top priority of the Philippine government. Israel and the United States have successfully carried out tests of a long-range ballistic missile interceptor that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says provides protection against potential threats from Iran. Take a look.
היום יש לישראל את היכולת לפעול נגד טילים בליסטיים שישוגרו נגדנו מאיראן ומכל מקום אחר. זהו הישג אדיר לביטחון ישראל, וידעו כל אויבינו, גם בהגנה וגם בהתקפה, שאנחנו נוכל להם. אני רוצה להעביר כאן
Dozens of fighters and civilians were killed in Syria's Idlib province as the government pressed a deadly offensive towards a key town in the country's last rebel bastion. The latest violence, which followed airstrikes that killed 18 civilians on Wednesday, buried a ceasefire deal announced by Russia and rebel backer Turkey that never really took hold. According to the Britain-based War Monitor, the fighting raged in an area south of Marat al-Numan, the key target of the Syrian government's latest military offensive. Nearly 9 years into the conflict, protests against the government are still held in some of the province's towns. Idlib has come under mounting bombardment in recent weeks, displacing tens of thousands of people in the northwestern province, which is home to some 3 million. The UN Humanitarian Coordination Agency OCHA said that since December 1 alone, almost 350,000 people had fled their homes, mainly heading northwards from southern Idlib, which has borne the brunt of the airstrikes. A UN resolution on cross-border aid to Syria maintained 2 key entry points for UN humanitarian aid into Idlib, where the number of people in extreme need keeps growing. To other news now, the Iglesia Ni Cristo continues to conduct aid to humanity around the world. Evelyn Vivas reports from New Zealand.
We're here at the venue of the Aid to Humanity of the Church of Christ Iglesia Ni Cristo here in Auckland, New Zealand.
And here we are in Auckland at present, where we are holding an Aid to Humanity event, which is under the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation. And this has been approved by the church administration. And this is an event which we are doing not only here in Auckland, but in 5 different other places here in New Zealand. And this is also being done simultaneously all around the world. This is an event that we have relaunched in the beginning of the year, because we have done this already in previous years, and it has been very successful in helping our fellow men. And the church administration has decided that this year we will relaunch this once again, and all the more intensify this work of propagation and this work of helping our fellow men. With the help of our Lord God, we are praying that this will be a very successful event for today.
New Zealand, the land of the long white cloud. This is where the Iglesia Ni Cristo Church of Christ recently held an outreach activity called Aid to Humanity through the Felix Y. Manalo or FYM Foundation, the charitable arm of the Iglesia Ni Cristo. The event took place in various cities around New Zealand. Here in Auckland, New Zealand, the event was held at the Auckland Netball Center at number 7 Alison Ferguson Drive, St. John's. Auckland Netball Center is the oldest netball center in Auckland, and it's the largest netball center in New Zealand. The volunteers prepared and donated free care packages of food and basic personal items to the families within the community.
And we thank our Lord God and of course our beloved Executive Minister, Brother Jodo V. Manalo, for launching this very big event. In the New Zealand district, a lot of brethren, led by all the ministers, workers, and the officers, are taking part in this very big event.
Ako po si Ronnie Lumen, from Mandaluyong City sa Pilipinas, dito sa New Zealand, sa Papatoy po. Ang pinaka-tumatak sa akin dito, sa Philippines po, ay yung kailan na itataging Iglesia Ni Cristo noong 1940, kasabay ng World War I. At yung mga signs na nangyayari ngayon ay katulad ng nasa scriptures ng ICC. Kaya medyo kung isa-isayin po natin yung mga nangyayari na kalamidad, gyera, sakuna, aksidente, halos pan po. Parehas po talaga yung mga nangyayari sa mga sinabi po na mga ministro.
Tagal na akong naghahanap ng paraan para ma-meet ko yung parang major parties sumubuo ng Iglesia ni Cristo. Yun. So, yung sinabi sa akin ni
Every Christian should be doing something similar to what we are doing. Practical Christianity calls on us to give to our less people with less need, with less means in life, those who need to be helped the most. Yeah. So that's something that really struck me. The reason why you're doing this thing today.
And congratulations, it's very successful.
Yes, very successful. Tuloy-tuloy nyo lang po at marami kayong matutulungan ng mga Pilipino dito sa New Zealand.
From New Zealand, I am Sister Evelyn Vivas, and I am one with 25.
After nearly 2 years of conflict between the world's two dominant economic powers, the U.S. and China signed a trade truce on Wednesday, letting businesses around the globe breathe a sigh of relief. U.S. President Donald Trump, who currently faces an impeachment trial and then a tough re-election bid later this year, called the agreement momentous. But tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars in imports remain in place, leaving American consumers and businesses to foot the bill. The Phase 1 agreement includes pledges from China to beef up purchases of American crops and other exports, provides protections for U.S. technology, and new enforcement mechanisms.
Since China joined the World Trade Organization 2 decades ago, we have racked up nearly $5 trillion, the Vice Premier, I hope he's not listening to this, in trade deficits, lost millions and millions of manufacturing jobs, and saw tens of thousands of factories close. And that had to do also with Mexico and to an extent Canada. What they did to this country with trade and trade deals, NAFTA, we had no deal with China. I mean, we had no deal. And it was like just easy pickings. Our efforts have yielded a transformative deal that will bring tremendous benefits to both countries. We have a great relationship with China. We have a great relationship with the leadership of China. And China fully understands that there has to be a certain reciprocity. There has to be. It cannot continue like this. It would be dangerous for it to continue like it was.
In a letter to President Trump, read by Liu, the Chinese leader said the deal is good for China, for the U.S., and for the whole world. However, the most difficult issues remain to be dealt with in Phase 2 negotiations, including massive subsidies for state industry. Prior to the signing, U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said the deal puts pressure on Beijing to stay at the negotiating table and make further commitments, including on cybersecurity and access for U.S. services, firms to the Chinese markets in order to win relief from the tariffs that remain in place.
This is an enormous win. This is the first time we've ever had an agreement. This is an encompassing agreement. Goes through, as I said, technology issues, agricultural, structural issues, financial services, currencies, purchases. They'll purchase over $200 billion of additional things, dropping the trade deficit, which will lead to growth. So this is an enormous win, and I don't think that the tariffs will have any significant impact on any one individual. We've managed these tariffs so that mostly all of the consumer goods are not impacted. And I think, quite frankly, the average consumer will see a stronger economy in 2020 as a result of this deal and USMCA. So we expect significant growth.
As part of the accord, Beijing agreed to import an additional $200 billion in U.S. products over 2 years, above the levels purchased in 2017 before President Trump launched his offensive, including an additional $32 billion in agricultural goods. President Trump has repeatedly touted the trade pact as a boon for American farmers who were hit hard by the tariff war. The agreement also includes additional protections for intellectual property and addresses financial services and foreign exchange, while including a provision for dispute resolution, which Mnuchin said will be binding for the first time. President Trump in August formally accused China of manipulating its currency to gain an advantage in trade and offset the impact of the tariffs. The label, which had no real practical impact, was removed earlier this week. The deal also restores a twice-yearly dialogue process that previous administrations conducted regularly, but that Trump scrapped. The Iglesia ni Cristo from all the way from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, donated masks for Taal volcano victims. Here is Eric Perey for the report.
The ashes of Taal volcano has brought chaos to the lives of many. Homes lost, livestock ruined, and livelihoods in question. Many are left to wonder what to do next. With the threat of a possible larger eruption looming in the minds of many, some think to themselves how they can help those who are in need. In a matter of minutes, many stores across Metro Manila and other provinces ran out of stock of face masks. This puts many at risk as the volcanic ash can be harmful to one's health. Because of this, the Brethren in Canada, in the District of Manitoba, united together to move quickly and gather available face masks in their respective cities and towns. These are to be donated to those who need them in the Philippines. Together with the face mask, the young brethren in this part of the world did their part by making handmade cards to send their well wishes and kind words to the victims of the Taal eruption. Words of encouragement to stay strong and be brave and to always put your trust in God. These care packages show the care and concern of the brethren in different parts of the world, but also show that we are united when it comes to helping those in need. From Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, I am Brother Eric Perey for Iglesia ni Cristo News Network.
Thank you, Eric. And that's the news for tonight. I'm Alma Angeles. Join us online and here again tomorrow evening. From all of us here, I'm always one with 25. Good night.
Ang susunod na programa ay rated PG. Ito ay nangangailangan ng patnubay at gabay ng magulang para sa mga batang manonood.
Bata pa lang po ako, pangarap ko na po maging singer. Sumali na po ako sa iba't ibang singing contest.